my mic had disconnected. Are we doing okay? Can you hear me now? I think we're good. I think I'm seeing that the mic is picking up. So I will hesitantly get started. Welcome back, everyone who couldn't hear me. I am so happy to be here with you guys today to make our spring teen take and make craft. We are, of course, making some handmade fidgets. So I have here an example of a pop fidget that you can make, so it kind of clicks in to its little case. And you can also make a worry stone. Like this one. Unfortunately, my son went missing from the craft display, so if you are the one who took him, I hope that you are taking good care of him and showering him with lots of love. So in your craft kit, you received a sheet of cardstock and some air dry clay that has hopefully been kept wet and usable for the month that it's been sitting out. Okay, you guys can't hear me. Thank goodness. Yes, your sheet of cardstock and your air dry clay. For supplies, because if you were working with clay, you want something to protect your workspace. I have just like a manila folder that I can work on. I also got like a paper plate to mix paint. I have to paint our finished fidgets some acrylic paint. I tried using kind of a lower quality craft paint, and I did find that it was having a hard time sticking, but feel free to use whatever you have. I also have, if additionally you would like to add some kind of finish to your final fidget, that's the word I was looking for, I also have like a gloss varnish. If you don't have something like this that's like a dedicated craft varnish, you can use something like Mod Podge, or even if you have like an Elmer's glue all, not glue, but like a PVA glue, you can also use that to set acrylic paint. For painting, I have like a paper plate, paint plates, my paints on, and some paint brushes. I have some water to smooth out my clay, and also for when I'm painting. And if you what's the verb form of pottery? You sculpt often, and you have like nail art tools or sculpting tools that you want to use to add detail. I find that for these, I haven't really needed anything like that. I do have for myself like a pencil and a ballpoint pen that I'm okay with getting dirty. But otherwise, I haven't found I need any sculpting tools to complete this craft. I had some questions as to like, am I making a pop fidget or am I making a worry stone? You can make both. I know it doesn't look like a large amount of clay, but you should be able to get one of each fidget out of this clay. However, I do find fidgets are so personal. And so you're like, I will never use a pop fidget, or I will never use a worry stone. You can definitely make 2 worry stones, make 2 pop fidgets, make a giant one. But it's, as always, it's whatever you feel like you're going to use, you feel like you're going to enjoy. But so we will go ahead and get sculpting. I'm going to put out my hair and take off my rings and prepare to get a little messy. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening as my rings already sticks on my finger. For my fidgets today, I think I will make. I recently finished reading the book House of Cerulean Sea, which of course is a Lincoln Award winner and has been recommended to me by a lot of friends, and you can check it out at the library. And I am obsessed with Theodore, who's the little wyvern in that book, so I think I will attempt to make a wyvern worry stone. I think for my pop fidget, I will make a potion bottle. As unfortunate spoiler alert, because this is air dry clay and the air dry clay needs to air dry, you probably will not be able to completely finish your craft tonight. The good thing is that with it being the end of winter, beginning of spring, is that I found with the dry air, this dries really fast, like either by the next day or sometimes even like at a workable stage where you could paint it like within like several hours or so. So you may have to wait for it to dry. I do have pre-dried ones to paint for our live stream today, but just in case you were like, yes, I'll definitely finish this craft today. We do have to wait for it to dry, but I hope that we can take this hour to sculpt together and have a fun time. I'm going to go ahead and start with the pop fidget because of a little trick that I will show you guys in a sec. So I'm just going to separate my clay ball. I find that generally the pop fidget is going to need a little bit more clay than the worry stone, just because it's 2 parts instead of 1. And so how I'm going to start this out is I'm going to start by making the inside of my pop fidget. So in the case of this one, I'm going to start by making the peach as opposed to the base. Because I'm going to give this a chance to harden a little bit so that when I grab it, it won't immediately mush up. So that I can have like a good fit into the bottom part of the fidget so that it works really well. So I'm going to take a little clay, and my hope is that I want to make a little potion bottle. So I want to start with a little ball, and of course you can make whatever your heart desires. I find that for both of these fidgets, so both the pop fidget and the worry stone fidget, that really they do benefit from really simple shapes. Any kind of extra bits will either break off or just make a less satisfying fidget. But there's a lot of things that you can do kind of within them. So I've gone pretty generally for like animals or objects with simple shapes. You could always do like a character you like. Actually, the pop fidget tutorial that I found that kind of inspired this craft was like Sanrio characters like Hello Kitty and Cinnamon. So really, the world is your oyster, whatever you guys would like to make. For the bottom part of my potion, I made kind of just a little round coin shape. And then I'm planning on adding like a little tip and then a little cork top. One of the fun things about, I think, these fidgets is adding some kind of relaxing tactile element. So in the same way that we would for worry stone, I'm just doing a little divot to make it really satisfying to press into as a pop fidget. And so I think it's always fun to think of how you can add different textures and different elements like that to make your fidgets even more tactile, even more satisfying to like hold and interact with. So here I've made the cork part of my potion bottle. And then to to give that a little more texture and kind of sell the illusion a little bit more, I'm going to take my mechanical pencil that has the nice sharp tip, and I'm just going to poke holes to give it kind of more of that cork look and a fun texture. So here is that. The audio is a little funny. So here's my start of a potion bottle. I think it's a little boring. So I am going to add, I think, a little star to the center, just to give it a little more interest. So I'm going to kind of press a little ball of clay to make kind of a little circle, and then I'm going to use that mechanical pencil to draw that star in and kind of cut the excess clay. Again, of course, you can make whatever you like. Whatever inspires you. I started to turn out great. How would I like to do this? I think maybe instead of a star, I'm going to do some little lumpies. Kind of look like bubbles. Those kind of interrupt. Change my mind. Final decision. I'm keeping it how it was. And then maybe we can do some fun stuff with the base of this one. So here is my potion bottle. Ready to go. I'm going to leave this to start drying and start working on our worry stone. So as I said, I think I'm going to do a little dragon friend tonight. And so for this one, I'm starting by, again, rolling it into a ball and then kind of flattening it out into a round shape. Again, it doesn't necessarily need to be round. It just needs to be a shape that is easy to kind of like press your thumb into. And so to start forming that classic like worry stone shape, I'm going to take my thumb and just start like massaging in so that it's more of like a gradual indent. Something that I found really helpful for this process is to use a little water on your finger because it can make that circle transition even more gradual as you sort of press and like massage in and then use your finger with that water on it to make it kind of a more satisfying and gradual transition. But you can definitely get creative on the shape. It doesn't necessarily have to be kind of ovalesque, which you'll see is kind of more so what I've gone with. Whatever you guys prefer. I must cough. Okay, so here is kind of my base worry stone. So I have my indent here in the center, and again, I've kind of used my wet finger to make that a nice, like, smooth, gradual transition. Because he's going to be a dragon, I kept him a little bit more like egg-shaped than circle-shaped. And from here, I can go ahead and add any details I want. Kind of same with what I was saying for that pop fidget. These guys really benefit from adding different tactile elements, so it's a little more calming as you're feeling your fidget. So I think that for my first step, I give him kind of big dragon eyes. And I'm just kind of squishing myself little flat balls of clay, and then I'm going to keep adjusting the size to make sure I'm happy with kind of the proportions of it. I found, I know in like good pottery technique, they teach you to like score it, and like to make sure it's like very securely attached. I haven't found on any of the like samples of this craft that I've made that it's really needed that extra security. So I've added these like little dragon eyes. If you can see them, it's kind of reptilian eyes. And next I'll do a little snout. So kind of the same idea, just a little oval shape to attach to the face. And I found that you need surprisingly little to make your creature read as whatever they are. I feel like if you wanted to do more of like a character, like some from a show or an anime, you'd probably rely a lot on paint to give them that look. And so once my little snout is attached, I'm kind of carving in some nostrils. And I think I might paint on like a smile or whatever expression I decide to do. Just because it'd be a really small detail to add in the clay. Here's his little pig now. He does look vaguely like Jake from Adventure Time, I think. And so then I think I'm gonna add maybe some horns. And again, for these worry stones, especially considering how they're going to be used, which is to hold in your hand and to feel them, if you're doing kind of like a hang off element, like a horn or wings or something, you kind of want to integrate it like so that it's not like hanging off of the sculpture, so that every part of it is attached to the clay, just so you know, it stays secure on the sculpture and isn't likely to break off. This is the kind of thing that you'll handle. So I've attached some little, he looks so weird. Okay, parentheses, affectionate. little horns to my guy, and I think I'll probably use that tip of the pencil again to add some kind of like horn ridges. Not super deep, just a little texture. And then I think now I gotta debate if I want to sculpt wings. I do think I'll give him little claws. Because I guess that's what puts wyverns and dragons apart. That wyverns just have like little feetsies, and dragons have arms and feet. If there's someone watching who knows significantly more about the difference between wyverns and dragons than I do, I look forward to hearing your contributions. So again, I'm just kind of making like little log-like details. At this point, I'm trying to decide if I want to make his like dragon scales a like textured detail, either from maybe like putting little dots on him or carving into the clay, or if that's something I would rather bring out with paint. I think I'm going to give him some wings. Just so he reads as dragon and not a very strange little snake. And I think to make this as easy as possible, I'm going to keep it, I had to Google the difference between dragon and wyvern for this video. I'm going to keep the wing shape really simple, just so it's stays on our little wyvern friend. I kept the wing shape too simple. They didn't look like wings. They looked like a little penguin flappy. He's a weird little guy. I like him. I think what I will do for kind of the dragon scale texture is I'll add a few little bumpies, and then I will go ahead and add more, maybe some more detail in the paint job. If you notice your clay cracking out, just add a little moisture. That's part of what the water is for. It also can help like blend things together, make a smoother blend. If you add too much, it gets a little goopy, which is why I put my hair up and make sure to have, paper towels handy. So I've added what will hopefully look more like wings with a paint job. And from here, I'm going to add a few little bumpies to make kind of a dragon scale texture near the bottom. And then we'll call it here for our little worry stone. And finish up sculpting our pop fidget. I find these really fun and easy to make. I think they'd be really nice gifts for friends. You can make your friend's favorite character or favorite animal. My thought was, with it being a busy time of year in spring with finals and stuff coming up, it could be nice to have some fidgets to help you, calm down, regulate a little bit. Obviously, worry stones and pop fidgets are just two kind of fidgets. I do love a pop fidget. It's one of my favorite. I also love the ones that are kind of like video game controllers that have a lot of buttons to press. I find those very satisfying. Alright, I think I am pleased to call it there. Here's my little wyvern fidget. And so from here, I will let him dry completely before I paint him, which will probably be at least a few hours, if not tomorrow. So all we have left is for our pop fidget, our potion pop fidget. So the reason I was saying to make that first and let it dry a little bit is now we can take our remaining clay and kind of use our actual popper as a template to make sure it's the same shape and it fits in well. So if your popper is dry enough that it would hold its integrity and let you like press it in, you can definitely do that. It's kind of a benefit of waiting. However, what I've done is I've just traced the shape onto it, and so I can press in there and kind of build up walls around the line that I drew. And so for my peach fidget, I didn't kind of theme the outside as much, and I think I'll probably, just for the sake of time today and getting to other steps, we'll go ahead and keep this one pretty simple as well. But yeah, I find that it helps a little bit more to have the part that pops out mostly finished so that you can build the outside to really hold it well. And so from here, I'm just kind of making myself a like outline little box for my potion bottle. And so I'm using a lot of water for this one since I kind of had to mash it around the potion bottle to smooth it out a lot. And I'll keep that popper on hand to kind of regularly place inside to make sure that it'll fit and it'll have enough room and that, everything's gonna fit okay. Looks like it's actually a little too big. In the kind of bottom part of the bottle. So I will smooth. I took some of the excess clay out and I'm just smoothing that out. Again, I don't think I really want to theme the outside for this one, but I do want it to look intentional and uniform. And so I'm relying a lot on the water to do that. Get rid of any cracks, refine the shape a little bit. I'm also trying to make more of a like flat lip here on the top so that it stays really well. I think I am happy with that fit. Ooh, there we go. So from here, I would leave these both to dry. Even if you're checking to make sure that your potion bottle fits, you'll want them to dry separately so that your the popping part of your pop fidget does not stick inside its shell. That would be not great. And so once you're happy with the shape of your popper and your shell and your Whirlstone, you can leave those all to the side to dry. And so what I'm going to do here is kind of wipe off some of the excess clay on my hands so we can start doing some painting. And so as I said, the ones that we just made will need probably at least several hours to dry. So I'm putting them to the side. And I do have some a la cooking show, some pre-dried fidgets to paint, and also to show you how to assemble the pop fidget. So I have some ocean themed ones. I have a little fish right here, and then for my pop fidget, I have kind of this like ocean themed casing and a little shell. Just because, so with all of my samples, I painted them first, and then I created a pop mechanism. But because I think it's a little more difficult than painting, which, you know, you paint your fidget and then you're ready to go. I'd like to show you how to do this first. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to make an accordion spring out of paper. So we're accordion folding some paper. And so using my scrap paper, I'm just going to cut two thin strips about the same size, and then first thing I'm going to do is test kind of if they fit well underneath. Like if they're fully covered by my pop fidget, and it looks like they will be. So you kind of want to compare the widest part of the strips that you cut, just to make sure that it'll be hidden by the pop filter. Then we will take our strips, put them perpendicular to each other, 90-degree angle, making this nice line, and we're going to glue them together. So I have here just some Elmer's glue. I have found that, you know, my pop fidget held up great with just Elmer's glue. If you have hot glue or anything like that, you could definitely use it. But a testament to the glue on this one, if you grabbed your own craft kit, you saw that that peach one was out on the floor. And so lots of people were touching it, and the Elmer's glue held up fine. So I don't think you necessarily need anything stronger if you don't want to do anything stronger. And I'm going to let this dry for a second. And I'll start taking out my paint. I'm just using some heavy body acrylic. Again, please use whatever you have. And then I usually do, when I use these acrylic paints, a definitely every color of the rainbow. So I'll go ahead and mix my own paints. I'm kind of like painting my pufferfish more of like a turquoise. And then I'm not quite sure what to do for my shell. I definitely think I want to make the outside look like sand. And then probably like maybe a coral for that shell side. Mostly just doing this now so that Elmer's glue gets some time to dry on our accordion spring. Launch the acrylic lid into my pants. Let's check on how our glue drying is going. I think this is definitely secure enough to start folding the spring. So here is kind of the area where they both connect. I'm going to take one, it doesn't matter which, and fold that down over where the glue connects them. Then I'm going to take the other sharp paper and fold that down in the same spot. And just alternating between the two strips, folding them over each other like that. Just repeating that process over and over and over. I have made a mistake. So what I did was I alternated the direction ones. So I didn't fold them the same way every time, which is no good. You're going to want to fold them the same way so they can form that spring. Okay, and so once they're totally folded into each other, you should have a spring that looks like this. It might be a little too big or too intense for your fidget toy right now, and I'm just trimming some of the excess that's probably gonna, like leftover paper that would probably hang out at the edge of our popper. And so from there, then we can go ahead and attach the spring on one side to the bottom of our popping element. And again, I had no issues with Elmer's glue holding okay for that, which was surprising to me. And so we'll let that sit, let that glue down. I might have it glue with the pop filter on top and maybe like a weight on it just to hold it down. I'm gonna grab this bottle of varnish and just put it on top. Rest it on top so that it stays attached as it dries a little bit. And then from there, you can go ahead and attach it into your base. That's a good word for it. The one thing to be mindful of, though, is you can see the spring right now is just a little too large for the base. It kind of hangs out. It's not more of that like subtle popping, but really it depends on how you like to fidget. What you can do from here to kind of give it the the popping level of your preference is starting at some of the rungs of the filter. I'm just gonna, sorry, not the filter, the spring, just kind of cutting them off and then experimenting with, oh no, I think that still seems like maybe it's a little too intense. I personally like it when the spring is kind of more hidden in the filter, and so just kind of based on your preference, trimming little bits and then testing and seeing if you like the height of the popping. I think for me, because this is a more shallow base, I think I'm pretty happy with this. So when I'm happy with it, I can take the bottom of our spring and just glue it into the center of that base. Like so, and I was skeptical of how like satisfying the paper pop would be, but it's honestly, like, as someone who really enjoys like press type fidgets like this, it's really nice actually. I really think it's like a satisfying moment. So we will let that dry and then do some painting on our stone. So I've taken out some paint here on my plate. I'm going to mix up kind of like a light teal for his overall body. Of course, if you have kind of a kit with multiple colors, you might not have to do as much mixing as me, but I enjoy the mix. It's very satisfying. I think I added a little too much yellow. It's a little too green. So I'll go ahead and add a little more blue back in. I think it's just a little too dark, so I'm going to add some of my white back in as well. Tonight is a night of dropping paint caps for me, apparently. I'm over 3. Okay, I think that's a good value. Just want a little more blue. You guys enjoy mixing paint? I think it's a pretty relaxing process, but also sometimes be frustrating that you don't get the instant gratification of like, wow, that's the perfect color. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of do a wash of color around the edge of my pufferfish with my kind of teal paint that I've mixed up here. Because it's such a small sculpture, I find that it helps a little to have kind of more watery paint and do more strokes, because compared to, you know, something bigger, you're not doing you can kind of feel that texture a little bit more. Happy I was able to get you guys white clay for this, because I actually used kind of more of a terracotta clay from Crayola. And it kept coming off on my hands. I was so dismayed. It made sculpting very, very messy. So even though it's not perfectly white, I think it's a good kind of base painting surface that you don't need to prime or anything before going in and painting. For the frog worry stone, I found that when I painted the bottom, it did peel off a little bit. So I don't know if it's necessarily like needed for this project to like fully paint the bottom even if you don't see it. I was doing that to try and kind of prevent peeling, but it didn't seem like it did. So if you guys just want to paint the parts that are visible, I think that's a-okay. This acrylic that I'm using dries really fast, so it enables me to go in for a second coat really easily. I found that this project definitely shows where it needs more paint. It lets you know. Just be careful about holding it if you're painting with acrylic, because as you're painting, some of the paint can peel away. But so here's kind of our little pufferfish guy with his first wash of kind of blue around the edges. And then I'm going to take the same, that color that I used and add a lot of white to it to make kind of like an almost white blue. And I think I'm going to focus that color on his belly, on the worry stone part of his belly. I am just using the back of my paintbrush to mix paint. It's not the most ideal if you've got like a palette knife or some kind of tool that you can use just to mix. It does make it less messy. But whatever you got will work great. So I'm painting my pufferfish's belly with just that lighter version of the color that I used for the outside. I did kind of apply his wings a little uneven. Not wings. Ugh, I'm thinking of the wyvern. Of his flippers a little unevenly. So I'm going to try and kind of like cheat more symmetry by kind of placing the color in a similar spot. And then as much as I can with this brush I have, I'm going to try and do a little bit of a blend into the other color to make it look kind of more like it's a seamless transition. I find that if the paint on the brush gets too dry, it can kind of lift the acrylic that's underneath it. So I think it helps to keep your brush really wet on these guys. I think priming did help a little bit, but not a lot when I had tested it. So I think it's just being careful with the medium. And again, I think making sure everything's nice and wet also really helps. Yeah, I find that even the sections where maybe a little bit of the paint is peeling up, if you go in with some water on your brush, it does help kind of make it look a little bit cleaner. So here's what we've got so far. I want to add some kind of navy detail to his eyes and his mouth, and maybe a little bit on those dots on his body, and also his flippers. So navy is kind of the accent color. So I'm mixing together a brown and a blue to make kind of like a soft black. And then I'll add just a little bit of extra blue to it to make it navy. And if you feel like you're stuck on how to paint your worry stone or what kind of worry stone to make, there's lots of really lovely examples online. I think especially if you check Pinterest, a lot of, handmade clay artists make some really lovely worry stones that they sell with really great ideas for ways to add texture, creatures that are kind of fun to worry stonify. And for these small details, I'm just going to go ahead and switch from this kind of like wider flat brush to more of a detail brush. And I'll go ahead and paint those kind of finer details with my navy paint. And so generally, like any of the details that you add in clay, they can make a nice kind of template to make it easier to draw those details on. So I think it just depends on whether you feel like you're more confident as a sculptor or more confident as, someone who paints with your painting tools. But I think the easier, the kind of more like big general shapes that you do, I think it looks really simple and cute, and I think turns out really well. So here you can see I've got his eyes filled in, and then I'll go ahead and do his lips with the same color. I want to put the lines a little bit here, but I found, I think especially with that frog sample that I made, that it's pretty easy to go back in with your body paint color and just clean those lines up a little bit. But I think it's a little bit easier before the paint totally dries down. So here where I've kind of gone outside his mouth line a little bit, I'm going to quickly clean my brush to swap the color, and then I can go ahead and clean up that line with some of that original body colored paint, and I'll still use this little detail brush for that. And I'm also, while I have that body color, I'll touch up a few areas where maybe our little guy needs more of a second coat. And I'll add some navy details to the fins and kind of those ridges that I sculpted for myself. and then added some spots to some lumps, I guess, not spots, to the bottom of his body to add some fun texture. And I can paint those the same color, so next, like these little bumps on the sides. And you can go as kind of big or as detailed with your paint job as you'd like. I tend to be someone who likes a bunch of tiny details, but I think a really like graphic and simple look is super wonderful as well. So I would probably, from this point, since we're pretty much out of time, go in and add some additional details. So maybe some like white shines in the eyes, maybe a little pink in the mouth area, maybe some blushes. But you could always leave your paint job more simple as well. And I just repeat that process of painting however I like on my Hop Fidget. Ooh, which is very satisfying and wonderful. I forgot to mention it, but if you do have acrylic markers, those would work great for this. I probably would just make sure that you don't sculpt in kind of like for this shell, like a lot of like ridges or texture. I think if you've got like a nice smooth sculpt, that if you have acrylic markers and don't want to have to deal with paint, that would be a great option for this project. It is 8:30, so it is time for me to bid you all adieu. Thank you for joining me for this season's Take and Make, Teen Take and Make craft. This is such a wonderful, fun program to do, and I think this has definitely been my favorite craft so far, so I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and I look forward to seeing you in the summer for our summer Teen Take and Make craft as well. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're here live or watching later, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much. Bye.